Ahamed Wasim from Department of Commerce, Arcus. Now we are going to see about methods of data collection. Before we are going to see about methods of data collection, we have to know about what is meant by research. Research is nothing but research in common parlance refers to the search for new knowledge and new fact. What is data collection? It is a process by which the researcher collects the information needed to answer the research problem. The task of data collection begins after the research problem has been defined and the research design has been chalked out. Before the data collection, the researcher has to various processes. First process will be the researcher has to define the research problem, and then second will be he has to review the review of literature, and then third one will be he have to formulate hypothesis, and then he have to make a research decision, and then will be he can go to the data collection. In collecting the data, the researcher must decide which data to collect and how to collect the data, who will collect the data and when to collect the data. The researcher has to know when to collect the data and how to collect the data. The selection of method for collecting information depends upon the resource availability. Based on the availability, will be researcher has to collect the data from the respondents, and based on the creditability and analysis and reporting resources and the skill of the evaluator. Sometimes the skill of the evaluator will be fixed by the researcher. For example, in case of interview schedule method, the enumerator will be appointed by the researcher. Methods of data collection. Generally, there are two types of data collection. One will be a primary method and there will be secondary data. The primary data are those which are collected from the first time and their original character. And the secondary data is nothing but the secondary data are those which are already existing data. They are collected from journals, articles and are already published in newspapers. The collection of primary data. For example, the primary data method can be collected through experiment, survey, interview, observation or questionnaire schedule. The collection of primary data is the following are the four important methods for collection of primary data method. One will be observation method, and then second will be interview method, third will be an interview questionnaire, and then interview schedule method. And then what is the observation method? Observation method is a method under which data from the field is collected with the help of observation by the observer by personnel going to the field. Steps for an effective observation. First, the researcher has to determine what need to be observed, and the researcher have to select the respondents, and then researcher has to conduct the observation on them, and then compile the data and analyze and interpret the data. There are two types of observation. One is structured observation and unstructured observation. In case of structured observation, when the observation is categorized by the careful definition of the units to be observed, the style of recording the observed information, standardized condition of observation, and the selection of later data of observation, and then will be an unstructured observation when it takes place without the above characteristics. And then there are further there are two more classification of observation. There are participant observation and non-participant observation. In case of participant observation, when the observer is a member of a group which is observing, then it is a participant observation. Non-participation observation is when the observer is observing people without giving in information to them, will be a non-participant observation. And then there are uncontrolled observation and controlled observation. In case of uncontrolled observation, when the observation takes place in natural condition. But in case of controlled observation, when the observation takes place according to the pre-arranged plan. Advantages of observation method in primary data collection. Usually observation method produce large quantity of data. All data obtained from the observation are usable. The observation techniques can be supported or begin at any time, and it can be relatively inexpensive compared to the other types of data method. Then following are the major disadvantages of observation method under primary data collections. The interviewing selected subject may provide more information economically than waiting for a spontaneous occurrence of the situation. It is an expensive method comparing to the other types of data collection, and it provides only limited information. And now we are going to see about the interview method under primary data collection. The interview method of collecting data involves presentation of oral verbal stymie and reply in terms of oral verbal responses. The interviewer asks questions to the respondents. The following are the effective steps for an interview method. Interviewer prepare an interview schedule, and then he have to select the proper respondent, and then conduct the interview, and then the researcher compile the data and analyze the data. Here also there are various types of classification under the interview method. One will be structured interview, and then under unstructured and focused interviews. Clinical interviews, group interviews, qualitative and quantitative interviews, individual interviews and selection interviews are also under the interview method. For following are the major advantages of interview method. The more information at greater depth can be obtained. Compared to the observational method, interview method are somewhat expensive. Following are the disadvantage, it is an expensive method. Interview bias, they can be said anything openly. The respondent will be biased. And then third will be questionnaire method. The questionnaire is sent by post or by mail to the person concerned with the request to answer the question and return to be questionnaire. Thank you.